Hey guys, welcome. So today we're going to be talking about the DPA in the world of this low inventory that we're experiencing. Today, I will be accompanied by Ty Christensen, which is a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer and Director of Government Affairs for Chenoa Funding, and yours truly, Luis Padilla, 2021 National President-elect. Ty, welcome.
Thanks, Louis. I'm excited to have this conversation.
For sure, me too. So I want to start off with a little paragraph as to how our relationship is very important. So let's see if we can talk a little bit about the partnership between NAHREP and Chenoa Funding and what it means to this organization. These programs are the core of our organization's mission statement of advancing sustainable homeownership. Add to the education of the public is good, but educating the practitioner and the parties involved is pinnacle. A lot of times the DPA program makes a difference in the ability of the homeowners today to be able to transition to generational wealth. So Ty, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and I heard you have some great numbers and statistics of the future of real estate and the minorities.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm Ty Christensen. I am the Director of Government Affairs for Chenoa Fund, as well as our Chief Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Officer. I have been in the real estate industry since 2003, and I've been with Chenoa Fund since 2018. I'm really excited about this conversation today because, as most people watching probably know, we have a large increase in minorities in the country, and by 2045, we are going to be living in a majority minority country. So a tree doesn't grow overnight, certainly does not bear fruit overnight. And so we need to start cultivating a relationship with our minority community members to increase home ownership. The Urban Institute has reported that by the year 2040, there's going to be a net gain of 6.9 million new homeowners, with 4.8 million of those new homeowners being Latino. And so we really need to do our part as a mortgage industry to increase homeownership within our communities.
Perfect, absolutely. So we're on the same page. So I wanted to start with some simple questions, and then we'll get into some of the conversation I have with my local board members or our national board members. What are some of the tips that you can share with us, given the members using and taking advantage of your program in the current environment? It's so competitive with cash offers or huge down payments or over asking price. How do we stay competitive with the program?
Well, I think, like, to your point, let's just start with some facts here. This is a seller's market. This market is not buyer friendly, and it certainly is not low to moderate income buyer friendly. So I think tip number one, and this may sound simple, but set the standard with your buyer up front. Be honest, and that's going to cultivate a relationship of trust. There's no need in telling your client that, oh, this is going to be great, this is going to be so easy, when we all know the case. It's not going to be easy. Right. You're going to be rejected multiple times, and there's been enough rejection trauma in our communities of color. So let's just set that standard up front. Hey, no big deal. Stay positive. We might not get this offer. We'll try again for the next one. So that's first tip. I know it sounds simple, but I think it's crucial that we start there. It's
setting the right expectations for that consumer, that we're in a challenging environment, and baseball players only have to hit the ball 30% of the time to go to the Hall of Fame. So.
Indeed. And if you are a buyer and that has been set up front for you, if you say to your client, hey, we're going to have to go through multiple offers before you may have one accepted. Well, then if you only have to go through 2 offers, now your buyer thinks you're a rock star because you set that standard with them, and then you haven't under-delivered and over-promised. You've done the exact opposite. So I feel like that's really crucial. Number 2, and I cannot stress this one enough, you as the real estate agent have to know your down payment assistance program front and back. There is no need trying to get your borrower DPA if you yourself were not wholly familiar with the program you are using. To that point, a lot of down payment assistance programs have certain requirements like home buyer counseling. Have your buyer take the counseling up front. There's a lot of, conversation about how DPA or even FHA loans can extend the timeline of a purchase. That is wholly not true if you follow the requirements ahead of time, right? Take that home buyer education certification right up front when you know your buyer wants to use DPA. Just get it out of the way. 95% of them are online, and they take less than 60 minutes. And so this is something you can do quickly that can yield a very fast result. Everybody likes getting a little certification at the end because it makes you feel accomplished. And then that's done. And you don't have to worry about that in underwriting. To that point, also tip number 3, please work with a lender who knows your down payment assistance program front and back. This is not the time to give your LO a deal and use, say, the Chenoa Fund DPA if your LO is unfamiliar with our down payment assistance program. You can call, especially with Chenoa Fund, we have a 24-hour staff that gets back to you within a matter of hours, sometimes a matter of minutes. We can tell you a loan officer in your area that is very familiar with our program that can assist you. Having a new program does take some time to learn, so let's just cut that out and work with someone that already knows the program, so there's no stalling and there's no extending of the timeline.
So to that point, let me elaborate on. Let me ask you a couple of questions. You went through a lot of information there, and a lot of it is new to me, so I'm eager to understand it. So, but first thing that was to my surprise is that the educational process is usually now online, and it'll take no more than 60 minutes. So that can be done up front, and that's what you recommend. Okay. And you also mentioned, which is some of the challenges some of my board members were having, which is 2 questions here, or walk me through these. How do you disclose? Is it regulatory to disclose that there is DPA involved, number 1? And number 2, when you say speak to that experienced lender, does that lender have the ability to underwrite, has the discretion to underwrite his first mortgage lien and the DPA, or is that 2 different underwriters? Talk to me a little bit about that. So
to your first point, depending on the state, you do not have to disclose on the purchase contract that you are using down payment assistance. Now, again, this is state to state. So, and I know you guys are national, so please look into this in your state. But for the majority of states, you do not have to disclose this. Now, typically this would not be an issue, but since we are in a seller's market and sellers have their pick of the pile, you may not want to disclose that on the Rep C, right? You want to make sure that you have that down payment assistance ready to go and make sure that your borrower has met all the pre-qualifications for it. But that does not have to be disclosed on the Rep C in the majority of states in the country. To the underwriting point, again, depends on the down payment assistance program. But with the Chenoa Fund, your loan originator is going to be able to underwrite that first lien and simultaneously the second lien for the down payment assistance program. So this is not adding an additional step. This is not adding additional timeline. Your borrower is going to be able to qualify for the first and the second simultaneously with the Chenoa Fund and a lot of other down payment assistance providers as well. We have what's called a forgivable second, which is a 0 interest, 0 payment loan. And after 36 months of paying the first lien on time, that second mortgage is completely forgiven. Very popular option with most of the first-time buyers. But again, underwriting, everything goes through your loan officer. They're gonna underwrite that first lien and that second lien simultaneously and cause no additional time. And then, so I guess you answered my question. The time involved as when we write up that contract would be just customary what it would take them based on their workflow of 40, 45 days, which is, we can get away with 30, ask for an extension a little bit later. So we can do it within that time. Okay, great. And tell us a little bit about, you said there are some that are grants, so therefore forgivable, and some that are not. Up to what dollar amount? Does that depend on income or the CRA involved in the community? Tell us a little bit about that. So the beautiful thing about down payment assistance is there's a wide variety of down payment assistance programs. And so to your first point, the grant program, those are going to be typically available on the county level. Grants are available for free. They are not a second lien, and they are provided as funds at closing to be paid to the borrower, typically paid directly to title. Now, the issue, if you will, with grant programs is the pools of money are very limited, and sometimes these resources are used up pretty much as soon as they're executed. So typically, by the time we're in June, there's no grant revenue left, right? Most of that's been eaten up in January, maybe extended to February. But in the market like this right now, I mean, some of these programs open up their pools and within days they're depleted. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to get grant money, that's beautiful, that's wonderful. You don't have to pay back those monies. And again, that does not have to go on the Rep C. So you don't have to worry about that being a hindrance to maybe some sellers. But programs that are more readily available, like the Chenoa Fund, we do work with secondary markets. And so all of our programs are in the form of a second lien. Now, to my original point earlier, some of our programs are forgivable. And so even though you do have a second lien on title, there's no interest and no payments on the loan. It's more of a placeholder, if you will. It's like an easiest way to describe that to your client. And then additionally, we do have repayable mortgages as well. And a lot of our programs have no income limits. And so if you've got that buyer who's, fresh out of college, maybe been out of college for 10 or so years, making really great money, but still unable to save for a down payment because they've got student loans and car debt, things of that nature, it's a great option for them because they can still have down payment assistance and they're not required to adhere to those AMI limitations. Right.
So to that point, they're amortized over 30 years, just like the first mortgage. And so the payments are if you're talking a lower amount, 10, 20, 30 grand over 30 years, would be a very small payment that would affect the DPIs.
Indeed, to your point. And so many programs have many different terms, right? So but the majority of our terms are actually 10 and 20-year terms and not 30. But to your point, we're talking about a very low amount of money. It used to be lower because home prices weren't so high. Now that home prices are higher, down payment needs to be a little bit higher. But you stretch that out over 10 years, 20 years, and the rates are very comparable. We're talking about a low monthly payment. And this allows your borrower and your client to not have to deplete their savings, and then they have revenue for lawn care or to fix up the home, paint, moving expenses. That they can increase their earnest money deposit, which also could make their offer a little bit more attractive to the seller. So it gives them that flexibility there.
Reduce that PMI that would be involved also. Now, so I know some of my colleagues in Las Vegas were using the home as possible and local union grants. How does those differ or similar to what Chenoa offers?
So again, with both of those programs, you're going to have a cap on how much they are allowed to allot per the pool. And so I cannot remember the name of, there's a grant program in Las Vegas that is extremely, extremely popular. It's escaping me right now. But again, the pools of money are typically gone within 2 to 3 weeks. So that's where the difference really is. And so if you as an agent want to try to get your borrower to have access to those grant monies, go that route first. But I would counsel to not home shop while you're doing that, right? Make sure those resources are allocated and locked in, and then go looking for homes. Because as a client, there's nothing more exacerbating than your agent telling you about XYZ grant program with free money for you to buy your home. And then you go out shopping, you find the home, you put the offer in, and then you find out that pool of money has actually been depleted some time ago. And you've got to wait another 3, 6, 9 months until the next tranche.
So now with, and I know we're moving out of the COVID situation, but did you guys see any of those local funds being allocated differently due to the COVID or moving those funds around, or are those funds sort of incubated or sheltered from other necessities within the community?
So for our program, we saw absolutely no decrease. Our funding is we're self-funded. We don't rely on any tranches of money or pools of money to come in. We do self-fund. And so for our particular DPA program, COVID really wasn't a hindrance to us. We stayed very, very busy during the beginning of COVID. And then like everyone else in the mortgage industry and in the housing industry, we saw a huge uptick because everybody was frantically trying to get out of their parents' basement or their 1-bedroom apartment and move to the suburbs. But with other programs, they did experience a lot of decreases in those pools of money. There was a lot of restrictions put on some of the grant programs. There was a lot of restrictions put on some of the pool tranches. Things were held very tightly at the beginning of COVID because investors and liquidators were not sure what was going to happen. And it was a really scary time for a lot of the other DPA providers.
So great. So in summary, as we're reaching here at the end of our allocated time, so for some of us, including myself, that are not familiar with the DPA, but seems that there is a niche, being in Miami, and there's a huge influx of immigration, first-time home buyers. And what would be our first step? Do you have a website where you can find those lenders? Should we call you, maybe not you directly, but where do we find that lender to educate us as to these are the programs, educate us so we can educate that consumer. And like you said, do our back end homework before we kind of hit the market.
Indeed, and feel free to call me. I'm happy to answer calls and answer emails. I may delegate, but I'm happy to always take the call. We do have a website. It's chenoafund.org. And on that website, at the very home page, you'll see 3 separate tabs: one for lenders, one for home buyers, and one for real estate professionals. And so go to the real estate professional tab. There'll be all kinds of marketing material there. Additionally, all types of resources to familiarize yourself with our program. And also there's emails and phone numbers on there for outreach to our customer service department that can hand match you with a lender in your area that's very familiar with us.
Perfect. Ty, all this information, I'm going to have to see this again, even though I'm moderating it, and get more familiar with your program. You've been a great asset to our organization. I thank Chenoa for allowing us to borrow you for some time today. And we look forward to seeing you in our next conference.
Thanks so much, Louis. Bye.
Bye.